Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who is out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Welcome to the podcast. Glad you're here. I'm going to be interviewing hypnotherapist Cynthia Morgan today. And what I love about Cynthia, she's very positive and she's very knowledgeable in this field. She's been doing it a long time. She's helped a lot of people. She talks a little bit about the differences in the, she's worked in different parts of the country, Los Angeles and the Midwest mostly, and the types of issues that people have and how they differ in the different parts of the country and the type of work she does. I actually went to see her about 10 years ago and did several sessions with her, and we talk a little bit about that as the interview progresses. I just want to say, please excuse the less than ideal sound quality of the actual interview. I was using some different mics when I did this, and I don't like them as much as what I have now. So, but I mean, it's still fine. It's just not exactly what I would want. So please bear with me if you're one of those audio snobs who really want great, perfect sound, which I kind of do. Although I did not want to re-interview her because, you know, she gave me her time and all that. So why would I do that? Right? I mean, it's a good interview. It's a lot of fun. So please sit back and enjoy this interview with hypnotherapist Cynthia Morgan. Let's plug your website before we even get started.
Thank you. Well,
Yes.
thank you for having me on the podcast.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
Well, good to see you. So it's cynthiamorgan.us.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just like it's spelled.
Yeah.
All right. So go and check that out because there's a lot of things other than what we're going to be talking about today, I think. So, I mean, I know that because I checked it out.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. There's a few things on there.
So when I was looking at I actually saw a video of you on YouTube. I watched that. And you were talking about people being hypnotized. And I'm going to paraphrase. You said something like, I don't hypnotize people. They're already hypnotized. I unhypnotize them.
Yeah.
Explain that because I thought that was great.
Thank you.
Yes.
I think that was a trailer for my book, which is called You're Already Hypnotized. I'm not just trying to plug my
Yes.
book. It's part of the conversation.
That's okay.
Yeah. It is called You're Already Hypnotized because that is what I say to clients when they first come to me. I think a lot of people are really nervous to do hypnosis. So I try to make them feel better. And I say, you're already hypnotized. I'm really not going to do anything to you except for dehypnotizing you. Because your mind is already filled with past experiences and interpretations, some of which are wrong, negative ideas, beliefs about yourself. And all of us are walking around with these ideas. And we get programmed by our family when we're children. We get programmed by authority figures. We get programmed by television. And so people come in, and I feel like my job really is to dehypnotize them, to help them release some of these negative ideas. Of course, we all have some positive ideas in there too, but I'm just focusing on the negative that are tripping them up, that are blocking them from living, I don't know, to their fullest potential, for lack of a better phrase. So, yeah, I consider myself a dehypnotherapist.
I love that idea.
Thank you.
I think a lot of people, when they hear about hypnosis, they think of the people that do it for entertainment, and they get afraid. They think, oh, what is this person going to do? I'm going to walk down the street and the phone's going to ring and I'm going to jump up and down like a monkey.
Right.
Is that what's going to happen?
Right.
How is this going to, so what is hypnosis and what isn't it? Because the entertainment thing, is that real? Is it not real? Is it,
It's a great question. And I don't know how other hypnotherapists feel about this, but I actually think those hypnotists are really amazing hypnotists. They're probably better than most hypnotherapists. Hypnosis is different to a certain extent than hypnotherapy. So hypnotherapy is using the therapeutic aspect of hypnosis to produce a change. But hypnosis can be done at the stage fair and make people jump up and down and quack like a duck and do all sorts of crazy things, dance with a broom. Those people really are hypnotized. And by that I mean, in that moment, they believe. There's a line in A Course in Miracles that says, beliefs are real to the believer. That these beliefs are real to that person believing it. Their conscious mind, their critical mind has disappeared in that moment. And they are fully in that situation, believing it to be true. Now, we aren't walking around completely like that. We have our conscious mind intact. We're able to recognize that we're not dancing with a broom, but there are other things that we're not aware of, old patterns, old beliefs, old ideas that are running us. And so I think that when you talk about stage hypnotism, it's important to understand that in those situations, usually the stage hypnotist will take, like, let's say there's 100 people in the audience. Before the show, they'll take like 20 people who raise their hand and say they're interested in coming up on stage, and they'll do a little test with those 20 people and say, okay, I want you to imagine that you're biting into a lemon. That's a common suggestibility test to see how suggestible somebody is. And so out of those 20 people, 5 of those people might really wince at the idea of having that experience of biting into a lemon. Their mouth might start to water. They might have some strange reaction. And so then the hypnotist will take those 5 people and bring them up on stage.
Okay, so
basically, he's found the 5 people in 100 that are highly suggestible.
Okay.
I mean, you have to also be a bit of an exhibitionist.
Yes.
You have to be a bit of an extrovert in order to raise your hand and say, I want to go on stage in the first place. So there's a few psychological dynamics at play as well as being highly suggestible.
Okay.
Maybe those go hand in hand. I'm just having that thought for the first time. Maybe extroverts are just highly suggestible as opposed to introverts. Well, I don't really know that.
Yeah,
answer,
I mean, it's pretty interesting that you would consider those people like better than most hypnotherapists. I guess they really have a gift for doing that kind of thing of finding suggestible people and then getting them to do things. But can it actually last for like every 2 days from now? That suggestion, that part always sort of fascinated me, that you could implant a suggestion and 3 days later that trigger for that suggestion, will that still work down the road?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it could work for the rest of your life. So, I mean, obviously a good hypnotherapist or a good hypnotist won't do that unless it's a positive suggestion, like you no longer like to smoke cigarettes or whatever it is. But
the evil hypnotherapist.
I don't think there's many of them out there, but who knows?
All right. So now you were saying people come in with certain beliefs that you want. What are some of those really common ones? Because I know I have certain things that I believed when I was younger that I had to work on to go, that isn't really true. That was just sort of taught to me and reinforced, and I don't really think a lot of those things now. Right. Are there some really common ones? I would think some of them would be like, I'm not a nice person, or people can't be trusted, or these sort of common things where people feel bad about themselves or have a mistrust of other people, or money is bad. That's a big one.
It is a big
yeah.
one. Or you can't be spiritual and have money.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There certainly are a number of core negative self-thoughts, I call them. And everybody has a core negative thought. And that thought is, if you put somebody in hypnosis, and which is just let's just reframe maybe for listeners the idea that hypnosis is really just a relaxed state of mind. It, in a therapeutic setting, you're just getting the physical body relaxed so that the conscious mind calms down a bit, so you're able to open up the subconscious mind and take in suggestions, or be able to access deeper memories and beliefs about yourself. So getting back to your question, when somebody is in hypnosis, we're able to look at some of those deeper beliefs and feelings that people are holding about themselves. Everybody has a core negative self-thought. The common ones are, in my experience, I've been doing this about 14, 15 years, I'm not good enough, I'm unlovable, I'm alone, I'm bad. Sometimes it's I'm undeserving. And then I hear all kinds of other things, of course. But those are the common ones. And I notice, for instance, that smokers have about 80% of the people who come to me to stop smoking. I started noticing they all have the same core negative self-thought. And that is, I'm alone. And I thought, oh, that's so interesting. Why are all these smokers having this core negative self-thought? But then when I listened to them talk, I heard them talk about cigarettes as their best friend. Oh, but smoking has been with me through thick and thin. And they anthropomorphize the cigarette as a best friend. And so I thought that's really fascinating, that their core negative is I'm alone. They join a tribe of smokers. I'm a smoker. It's like a tribe. You know, you used to see them, or maybe you still do. Not many people smoke anymore in LA, but you used to see them huddled outside of restaurants together.
Right, or office buildings. Like
or
they go outside and they have. I mean, I've seen it in offices where they'll kind of look at each other like, is it time? And they have a certain bonding experience that they have outside when they smoke.
Isn't that interesting?
And and you walk by them and they're like, we're doing this now.
Yeah,
so.
Right. You're not part of this tribe.
That's an interesting thing, how it just comes down to feeling alone.
And they can go bum a cigarette off a stranger really easily.
Right, and it's an easy way to start a conversation.
Yeah. So that's just something I've noticed, is that tends to be. Now I've outed all the smokers.
Well, let me add this to it, because when you think about a baby, the first way that they interact with the world is with their mouth. It's the very first thing that a baby does. Is everything is put in the mouth, and they're making noises, and they're suckling, and they're doing all those things.
Right.
And so it really is the way that they, that a very new life connects with the world, because they can't do anything else.
Yeah, that's true.
So it might have a little bit to do with that.
Yeah, it's fascinating. But yes, those are the core thoughts. And then, of course, I see commonalities with people who, like people who come in for weight loss. There's very similar thought systems of weight being a source of protection. Who am I going to be if I lose weight? I don't know what I'll look like. I'll have unwanted attention. Those are common themes, particularly with women and losing weight. So, there are common ideas and thoughts that people see me to release.
A mechanical problem with my back, it manifested in that. And then I later read a book called Mind Over Back Pain and Overcoming Back Pain by a guy named John Sarno. It's an amazing book, and one of the things he says in the book is that it's for, other than an actual physical problem, which most people don't have, there is a mental component. And I remember thinking about what happened here, and right after I had read that book, I was folding socks on my bed, and I was thinking some really unpleasant thoughts.
and literally I was standing there. The only physical effort I was making was putting one sock into another one, and my back just went.
Wow.
And it made me, and I'm glad it happened because it connected with what I had just read, and I went, oh, this is something really, this is real, this is just a manifestation of my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm glad you had that experience.
yeah, I mean, it hurt, but it was
yeah. Oh, I meant the healing.
Oh, the healing, yeah.
The healing of the hypnosis, yeah. But people have that experience. It's really true that people don't feel physical pain in hypnosis. You don't feel pain, period, in hypnosis. It's impossible, really. If you get into the right state of hypnosis, pain disappears. Because what people don't understand, this is a really far out concept, is that pain is in your mind. It's not in your body.
So, this is
It is, but it's amazing.
So if somebody was hypnotized and I went up and poked them with a needle,
Yeah.
they might feel that.
No, they wouldn't feel it.
Whoa.
Yeah. There's a doctor, I can't remember his name, Dr. Angel something or other in Spain, and listeners can look him up. He's amazing. He, I think he's still alive, but about 15 years ago I saw this BBC program on him, and he did over 700 surgeries by that time, major surgeries, just using hypnosis. And he would make the post-hypnotic suggestion that people would heal perfectly and they wouldn't have any issues with the healing. Everything would go smoothly, no infections, etc. He's never had an infection. He's had all of these successful surgeries, and he just has the patient in a state of hypnosis staring, actually with their eyes open, at a spot on the ceiling. And I saw this so long ago, but the clip that I saw, he was literally sawing with what looked to me like a hedge trimmer, sawing a woman's leg open, and she was just in hypnosis.
Like a bone saw?
Yeah, what's a bone saw?
It's a special saw
Yeah,
that
I
cut
think
through
so.
a bone. I guess that's
I
what
guess
I just
so.
always like that phrase.
Yeah,
Bone
I
saw.
guess it was a bone
Just
saw.
ominous, a bone saw.
It seemed
Like
ominous. I couldn't even watch, and this woman was having this done to her, and I'm a hypnotherapist, but
See, my first
blew my
reaction
mind.
is it's fake. That's my first reaction.
Yeah, unless you interview the people who are having it done. And obviously he just doesn't take somebody off the street and sew open their leg, but they go through extensive training. And for whatever reason, maybe they can't take anesthesia. So what's the option for these people? Before chemical anesthesia was developed, people used hypnosis. At the turn of the century, hypnosis was super popular.
I know
for
a guy.
surgery.
I know a guy who basically did that with himself when he had a colonoscopy, and the
Ah.
doctors were blown away. He
Yeah.
was like, I don't want to take drugs, and I'm not
Right.
going to do that. He was an alcoholic, and he said, I'm not going to take pills or anything. I had a problem with it. I know that it's that I can put myself in a state of meditation, and he goes, I felt it kind of, but it didn't.
Right.
He goes, and the doctors were like, Are you sure? Are you sure? And he goes, I did the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, there's obviously he just did it himself. So
Yeah, I'm a hypnotherapist, and I don't even know if I would do that. I
wouldn't.
I get a cavity filled, and I still
Yeah.
take the Novocaine. But actually, my father he's had root canals, and he's never had Novocaine. And he just uses, but he's been meditating his whole life, and so he's a big, mind over matter guy, and he's fine. So I actually have seen it firsthand, but it's a fascinating concept. It's really interesting. The idea that pain isn't in our body, it's in our mind. And we feel pain where our consciousness is directed. And so I think a simple example of that is like when a kid falls down and scrapes his or her knee, and it's bleeding, and they're looking at it crying, and it hurts. But then if mom or dad distract them to the puppy across the street, all of a sudden they're giggling at the puppy. So what happened to the pain?
Yes.
They're not feeling that pain anymore because their conscious mind has been directed elsewhere. So in hypnosis, we're kind of like
Yeah.
looking at a puppy. You know, we're directing the mind away from the body. It's fascinating.
Well, people freak out just in anticipation of pain.
Yes, absolutely.
I remember once my wife was going to pop a pimple on my daughter's, well, I won't tell you where, it was on her leg, let's just say. And she was moving her hands toward, and my daughter was screaming, "Ah, it hurts! I haven't touched you yet." It was.
See,
So we're
everything was
laughing.
in her mind.
We were laughing, and she's screaming, and it was,
Right.
yeah, it was. She was just absolutely terrified. Said
Right.
it hurt.
Well, you know, I just realized I don't think I answered your question. Sorry. You were asking what people come to see me for, and I think it's interesting that I used to have a practice in Kansas, and I would fly out to LA to see clients once a month for like a week, and I did that for about a year, and I would fly between the two. And what became really fascinating to me is the differences in what people would come to see me for in Kansas as opposed to LA. And the people in Kansas, there's sort of this nose to the grindstone, work through your problems mentality, and they would come to me as a last resort. They would come to me for behavior modification mostly, so weight loss, addiction, a fear of flying, a fear of needles, that type of thing. People in Los Angeles, I always say nobody smokes and everyone's thin, so people don't come to me here for weight loss or smoking, but they come for anxiety, they come for depression, they come for, you know, I'm a screenwriter and I want to be a director, I'm not where I am in my career,
Yeah.
that type of thing. So it's very different.
To get
And I'm not-
unstuck from something that's holding them back.
Yeah, and you know, to me, one isn't good or bad. It's just the way it is, and I'm happy that they come to see me, and hopefully we get them unstuck. So, but there is a difference.
It'd be great if we could sell anxiety, because we have so much of it here. I got to figure out a way to
That's funny.
market that.
Yeah. I don't know who would buy it.
I don't know. There must be some people that are just way too
Calm.
serene that need a little bit of anxiety to get something done.
That's funny.
So you gave me a book when I was seeing you, because I was interested in past life regression. I want to talk about that for 1 or 2 or
Sure.
10 minutes. Now, it's one of those things, when I first heard about it, I thought it was absolutely ridiculous, and I'm still not sure.
Yeah.
But I said, I want you to do it with me,
Yeah.
to do a past life regression. And you said, no, not until the last session. Why did you not want to do it sooner? And then we can talk about what I discovered in that situation.
Oh, okay. Well,
Would you
I-
do it sooner now?
you know, I might actually.
Okay.
How long ago was it that you came to see me?
Oh, many.
I meant to look it up on
You were
here.
living somewhere else.
Yeah, somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because I don't even remember. I feel like it's been at least 8 or 9
Oh,
years.
probably more than that.
10 years.
Yeah, probably more. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably would do it sooner. And maybe that had something to do with me too.
Well, I
rather
kept
than
saying,
the
"Can we do it
client."
now? Can we
I
do
kept
it?"
saying no.
What do you do? You did like a package of 8
Yeah,
or
I
9
do.
sessions or something.
I
and
do. I mean, and this is maybe for.
Were you holding that so I would just come
No,
back?
this is actually probably information that's good for any of your listeners that are interested in hypnotherapy, and I'll get around to talking about the past life. But when, how do I put this? Hypnosis. A lot of people, because they've been hypnotized by television and movies about what hypnosis is, they think that it's this, you know, magic pill, and that things can change in just one session, remarkably. And although they can, generally it takes a few sessions. It's not a cure-all in one pill, but it's also not like psychotherapy where you just keep coming back kind of endlessly.
Yeah.
It's very goal-oriented. So I tend to see people for 5 or 6 sessions. I call that a series of sessions. People come to me if they want to do this kind of work, if they feel like they fit with me, if they like hypnosis, then they'll purchase a series of 5 sessions, and I give them a 6th session free, and I see them once a week for 6 weeks. And it's kind of like we're going on this journey together.
Okay.
We're uncovering new ideas, deeper beliefs about themselves. We might build on a session. Something amazing might happen after a session that we process in the next session. But I don't find that people, if they're working on one specific goal, need more than 5 to 6 sessions. That's not always true, but that's generally true in my experience.
It's not really a lot when you think about what
What people have been holding
conventional
on to.
therapy and how many years you've been believing something or struggling with something.
Yeah, it's true. And so studies have shown that people need about 5 to 6 sessions of hypnotherapy too. I think it was the Journal for Alternative Medicine did a big study on cognitive therapy and hypnotherapy and psychotherapy. And I could be slightly off on these statistics, but they found that with 600 sessions of psychotherapy, something like 6% had felt like they had achieved their goal. And with cognitive behavior therapy, 25% felt like they had achieved their goal after 17 sessions. And after 6 sessions of hypnotherapy, 93% of the people felt like they had achieved their goal.
So it's more successful, or their goals were lower? I want to be able to cross the street without being afraid to get hit by a car.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really
and you just look at him and go, "What are you, an asshole? Get out there."
Go.
Thank you. I'm here.
So that's why I generally have people come for 5 to 6 sessions. I feel, and I'm not just saying this, but I honestly feel like if somebody comes to me for just one session, I'm kind of ripping them off. Because they need more than
I understand.
one. Like, I feel like I'm taking their money and being like, okay, good luck with that. But if I see them for 6 sessions, I'm fairly confident that they're going to walk out a different human being or have their perceptions changed or something is going to happen. So, getting back to your question, with past life regression, I feel like because everyone is so skeptical of it as a client, rightfully so, and they feel like nothing's going to happen, I'm not going to get any information in this session, that they need to be more trusting of their own subconscious, and that takes a little bit of training. And so I generally do it in the last session.
I wish you would have told me that.
Did I not explain that?
And you probably did, and I was
hypnotherapist.
Well, no, you probably did, and I was just self-obsessed and pouting because I didn't get what I wanted right away.
Oh, that's funny. Maybe I didn't explain it.
I don't remember.
But that has always been the reasoning. And maybe in the beginning I'm confident as a hypnotherapist in my abilities now. Maybe I was a little less confident, and I felt like you needed to, and not just you, I mean generally any client just needed to be as good as they could be so I could be good too.
Well, I understand.
And we could have the results.
I understand wanting to do a few sessions first before you did that. I can't remember the name of the book that you gave me, but it was
I don't remember either.
But it was a fascinating book, and that if even half of it was true, and I'm sure all of it was, it seemed like there was a doctor that worked with some woman, and her issues, her present day issues, were rooted in past lives. And it literally, when he took her back to those past lives and talked about them in that way, she was able to, she couldn't figure out why she was the way she was. There was no precipitating incident since she had been born in this life that seemed to be the cause of her anxiety. I can't even remember what it was. I just remember this sort of general idea of, I don't know why I'm like this. Usually somebody can say, I was bit by a dog when I was 3 and I'm terrified of animals.
Right.
Or, I got screamed at by, my grandmother who raised me, and now I'm terrified of women. I don't know, whatever.
Right.
I'm making things up here, but this was something else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, and I cannot remember the name of the book, which is terrible right now. I'll have to ask my subconscious through the rest of this podcast to come up with the name of that book.
Okay. Now, I don't want to distract you. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I know that book's, I've handed out that book to maybe 5 or 6 people over the course of the last 15 years, and I can't remember the name. It's just leaving my head
that's
at the
okay.
moment.
So do people ask for that a lot, or was I
past life regression?
Yes, or was I sort of a rare kind of ask?
Does. Isn't that interesting?
Oh,
Nobody
really?
does.
I thought I was just, okay.
No.
I'll give
I
myself.
I probably do a past life regression maybe 3 times a year.
Wow.
Like never. I love doing them. They're really fascinating.
Well,
But
there,
I think most people probably would be fascinated, but I think most people aren't really interested in it. I think
Yeah.
if we couldn't find the cause, then for sure I would do a past life regression with someone.
Yeah.
Or a natal regression. But if we know the cause, if we're pretty sure of what's going on and they're able to tell me the cause in hypnosis, then there's not really a reason to do past life regression. I've done them as last resorts because we're just like, what's going on? We can't figure this out.
I don't know if you remember when we did it with.
I remember bits and pieces that were really interesting.
Well, one of the things that I remember from is that it was a battle but I wasn't on horseback. They were coming around me. It was even more. It was almost like ancient Mesopotamia kind of place. And I'd always wondered, and this isn't why we did it, but I'd always wondered why aggression and violence frightened me so much. It really has always scared me, and when I see people engaged in that, I get really freaked out, and I don't like that kind of thing at all. And I wasn't like a fighter when I was a kid and getting fist fights. I mean, that stuff always really scared me, and I never really understood why. I thought maybe, well, you're just somebody. I didn't know. So when this was going on, I was like a person wearing like a robe or something, and there was a battle going on in this city, and I remember coming out and saying, "This is not right. You need to stop. This isn't going to solve anything."
Weren't you like a politician?
Yeah, something like that.
I remember you were a politician.
Something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, some sort of a writer or philosopher or politician. I don't know. It was something in the village where, and I remember being so frustrated by the way these people were acting. Like, I knew I wasn't getting through, even though I was out there in the street. But I also remember being really frightened by the horses going by. It was shadowy.
Yeah.
So afterwards, like, I felt like, well, I just made that up because I'm a scared guy, and I had to, that was somewhere, and then I made that up.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting because I went, oh, maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that's why I'm somewhat like the way I am, because I didn't really have an incident or anything to make me that afraid of violence. I didn't grow up around violence. So that was kind of an interesting thing and then I eventually became a writer. That was, kind of an interesting thing of, have I always been that guy?
Right.
In some way. And then you said, and I know they did this in that book, they have you look down at your feet. I remember you said, look down at your feet, and I remember they were in like these open like sandals, and then you said, and this was a really interesting thing because what you said afterwards, I always remembered. You said, okay, we're gonna go out of that life, and you're gonna go up into the universe and go on to the next one. And I don't remember what the next one was, but when it was over, you said, isn't it interesting how did you put it? It was something like how dying is not such a big deal. Do you remember saying that to me? I always thought, and that was the feeling I got. It's like been here before, gonna do it again kind of feeling. Like it wasn't this traumatic, horrible ending.
Right.
It was just another step in the cycle, whatever that cycle is. That's what it felt like. Did you remember saying that to me?
I don't remember saying that, but I do know that all of my clients through the death experience of that lifetime. So I'll say, move forward to the last day of your life in that lifetime. Are you dying by illness? Are you dying by accident? Are you dying from old age? How are you going to die today? And everybody has told me in detail, in their session
Wow.
how they're dying, or who's there, or who's around them. And sometimes I'll say, look into the eyes of, your daughter who's there, and tell me if you recognize her from this life. Oh yeah, that's my mother in this life. That type of thing. Okay, and then I'll say, move through the death process, and everybody moves through it, and nobody has had any complaints. Everybody
Not
has,
bad.
and everybody has said, wow, that's
Think I'll try it again. It is
what
a relief.
a relief that is to go through that death process. So, no, not one person has said, I don't want to leave, or I want to go back into my body. Everybody
Or
has
that was
had,
horrible, and I'm.
Yeah.
Why
Well,
did
I've had a lot of, what are the last, I always say, what's the last thought on your mind before your spirit or soul, whatever you want to call that, leaves your body? And so people will say, the last thought is, I should have had a family. And then what's interesting is that whatever that last thought is, they usually carry that into their next life. That's then the beginning of the next life in terms of what they're going to take in to work on, the regrets of the life before. And so, but I'm getting off track, because I was going to say, I've heard a lot of, I don't know, can I swear on this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
There's no fucking rules.
Okay. Well, I've heard a lot of, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of accidents. Like people, the carriage went off a cliff, or they accidentally tripped and electrocuted themselves, and the last thought was, oh shit. I've heard that so many times. Yeah, it's really interesting. So I don't know what they're carrying into this life, but usually the last thought is some type of like regret or something they wish they'd done differently.
I was reading somebody wrote this somewhere. It's like, you will, which is true of everyone. You will die with some regrets.
Yeah. I mean, some people are, I'm ready to go. I mean, most people actually are ready to go in their past life regression. But some people do talk about the regret, what they should have done differently. So.
But if you're really enjoying life, you probably want to do more of it at some point, and it just, there isn't time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're going to have that. At least I wish I had more time to try this and this, because you can only get good at a couple of things in a lifetime. I think you always wonder, what if I had gone a different way.
Yeah.
Would that have been better?
Yeah.
Had I not married, would I have been better? Had I married, would I have been better? If I had, pursued something that interested me that I was afraid to pursue in lieu of security, would that have been better? What would have been? You pay a price for everything you do.
It's true.
So
it's true.
It's hard to know. Because you don't have time to do both.
Yeah. Well, see, there you go. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, that's a little bit about past life. I don't have the answers in terms of how past lives work. Are we tapping into a collective consciousness? Maybe. Is everything happening simultaneously? Like Einstein said, yes. So that would mean all of our past lives are occurring now. And I think that's the interesting thing about doing a therapy, is that it's not, when you do past life regression therapy, it's not like a psychic just telling you what your past life was. You're really therapeutically moving through it to heal it. And as you, if you believe that that's occurring on some level, then you're actually healing it on some level. So if somebody has a traumatic event in their past life, I might, after we go through the dying process, take them back through that lifetime again and have them relive it and make up a new story and make up a new ending to that story, because everything is a creation of your mind, and it's all occurring at once, and so you're able to create a healing for that lifetime that begins to affect you today. but I don't, I don't know. I think we look at time in a linear fashion. So is there really a past life? I don't tend to believe that. I tend to think that there's parallel universes going on, and that things are like that life is happening right now.
So there's no such thing as being late for an appointment.
Well, in this life there is.
Yeah, there sure is. Oh, I missed the train. What is you mentioned it, and I'm assuming I know what it is, but what's natal regression? I'm assuming it's
Yeah.
you're taking people to their birth
I am.
of this
Yeah.
life's birth.
Mm-hmm.
What is that like? What's that? I guess I have something to try in the future.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It is. I start off by taking people to before they have incarnated and before they've come to this world, and ask them what is their intention for this lifetime. And everybody's answered me, and they've been profound answers. And why are you choosing this particular mother? Why are you choosing this particular father? Why are you choosing this particular family? What are the lessons to be learned here? And then I take them through the conception and through the first trimester, the interesting things that are going on and how that is affecting them in the womb, what they're coming to believe about themselves. If, let's say, dad runs out and doesn't want to have anything to do with this, a baby might begin to accept the idea that he or she is a burden. I'm just making all this up,
Yeah.
but something like that. And then interesting events that happen in the second trimester, and take them through the birthing process. If there was anything traumatic, we might change it. That type of thing.
What were some of the intentions that people had when you asked them that? What's your intention for this life?
Usually it had to do with to learn to forgive, to learn to stand on my own 2 feet for a change, to be there for my mother in this lifetime.
All strong aspirations.
Really,
You never-
we really come in with strong aspirations. Really.
You never get people going, I'm coming in to just create as many problems for other people as possible, be a difficult person to be around, maybe, you don't
No,
get that, right?
I've never heard that.
No. So
Yeah.
how come there's so many assholes?
Right.
They don't come in with that intention. They just get steered that way.
The mystics say
Maybe that's why they're so mad. They come in with intentions and they've been pushed
failing
in another
themselves.
direction.
The mystics say that we move through a veil of forgetfulness. So to forget our intentions and to forget what happened before, so we can focus on the present moment and learn those lessons, and that might have something to do with it. We forget who we are. I think ultimately that is everybody's problem, whether you're an asshole or not, is that we've forgotten who we are. And if we can somehow remove that veil of forgetfulness and remember, and hypnotherapy is only one way to remember, meditation, some spiritual religious practices, and they don't even have to have a spiritual bent, I guess, but those are easy ways to start to remove the veil. And I think that once we begin to remember who we are, we respond to life from that higher perspective. So, yeah, forgetfulness is not serving us, really.
Yeah, you usually don't see little babies with scowls on their faces.
Right.
And I think that's when people, if you notice, like when there's a baby that comes into a room, people they change.
Yeah.
They remember, is what there's a purity to that energy that they are attracted to in some way. That there's no way you can. I mean, it's pretty hard to hate a baby, or think anything other than that is, even if it's crying, it's still super adorable and beautiful.
Yeah, and I think it's reflecting that part of us that we have forgotten.
Can you give me an example of like one of the biggest changes you've seen in someone that's that came in a certain, maybe really down the rabbit hole deep, and within a certain amount of time? Like, I love those stories where I hear somebody has
Transformation
taken,
story.
yeah, that they've taken something that just seemed almost insurmountable, and then hit the surface and then thrived after that. You must have some stories like that.
Yeah, I do. I mean, there's actually, I feel like almost everybody transforms through hypnotherapy, but the real profound transformations, I'll tell you a story of a man who came to see me. He has a testimonial on my website with his name, and he's passed away since. So I don't think he would mind me saying that his name was Robert Brawley, and he was the dean of the art department at the University of Kansas. And he was in his 60s, and he had battled weight his whole life, and really just had given up. And
how big was he?
He
at that point? Like
was
300 pounds.
He
big?
was about 75 pounds overweight.
That's
significant.
Yeah, that's a lot to carry.
Yeah, had his whole life,
Yeah.
and he's at his 60s. And so he came to see me, and he said, I told him, for weight loss, we really need to do a series of sessions, 5 to 6 sessions. And he agreed to it, and he came to see me for the first session, and it went fine, and came back the second session, and he said, I don't notice any difference. And this may not be the story you're looking for. And then he came
That
back.
is the story I'm looking for.
And then he came back for the third session, and he was like, no, nothing's changing at all. And I'm like, really? Nothing? You're not thinking differently about yourself or about food? No, nothing's changed. Okay, came back for the fourth session. Nothing changed. Came back for the fifth session. At this point, this had been 5 weeks. He was pretty upset with me. And I was a little dumbfounded, but this was very early on in my career, but I also knew that I just really believe that when you do a hypnotherapy session, you are changed on a deeper level. And whether that person is ready to accept that healing or when they accept it is really up to them. So that's the limitation for me as a hypnotherapist. And I was like, I know we're doing good sessions. He's a great candidate for hypnotherapy. He's really good at it, meaning he listens to me, he gets the information, he answers my questions, he's able to visualize things if I ask him to visualize something. And he said, I have to tell you, I'm not coming back for the last session. And I was so hurt by that. He was like, this isn't working, and so I don't even want to come back. And I said, okay, but I tried to assure him, Bob, I know that something has happened in your mind. Trust me. He didn't want to hear anything I had to say.
Right.
So I felt kind of bad, and I hadn't had that kind of experience. And I ran into him about 3 months later, and this was in Lawrence, Kansas, so it was a smaller town, and he pulled me aside, and he said, does hypnosis have a delayed effect? And I said, yeah, it does. Sometimes it does. And he said, okay, well then I have to thank you, because I can't think of anything I've done except my hypnotherapy sessions with you. It's not like I went on a diet or tried anything else after you. I really gave up, thinking nothing worked. But he said, a few weeks after our last session, I just woke up one morning and everything had changed. Everything looked different to me. Food tastes different to me. I didn't crave the things I'd craved my whole life. I started walking. I don't walk. I started walking everywhere. He said, I've lost 25 pounds. The weight, it's just been so easy and natural. And he said, I've been meaning to ask you, I'm so glad I ran into you. Does it have a delayed effect? I said, well, I like to think it does, you know? I like to think that this is what the shift was. Especially because it was so natural and subtle. I like to say that hypnotherapy, hypnosis is subtle but powerful. Sometimes people come in, they don't even notice that they've changed, and they'll say to me, like, take weight loss. I've heard this numerous times. I'll say, what's happened this last week since I haven't seen you? Nothing, nothing's changed. And they'll say, what about that frozen yogurt you go to get after school every day? Oh, you know what? I haven't had a frozen yogurt in a week.
But only because I've been busy.
And I'll say, well, you know, they'll be so surprised by that they didn't even realize they didn't have a frozen yogurt that week. It's so subtle, hypnosis. It just kind of creeps in there, and that's the idea of being hypnotized. We're all hypnotized and we don't even know it. I saw Bob about 6 months after that, and he had lost 60, 70 pounds, and he was a completely changed man, and he was thin for the first time in his life. And he held on to that for, I'm going to say about a year, and then he developed cancer in his drawing arm and died shortly after. But I do feel like he won. I feel like he won the battle in this lifetime of getting on top of that horse of his weight instead of having it trample all over him. And I'm glad he had that year of a changed perspective.
That's amazing.
And a changed body before he died.
I wonder how much of it wasn't, you know, obviously there was a delay, but do you think he was, in some part of his mind was resistant to allowing it to work earlier, and he just couldn't help it after a little while?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think you just have to be ready. I mean, I hear people say all the time, they'll be like, I referred this person to you, you know, today, and they should be calling you. And I'll hear from them a month, 6 months, a year later. It's like it just had to sit in their subconscious until they're ready. Okay, I'm ready now. They can hear the suggestions, but it's like, okay, something clicked. I'm ready now. I think it's about breaking down barriers of fear. How long does it take to break down that barrier of fear in your mind until you're ready? Some people it's a lifetime. Some people, they can bust right through it and they're ready in that one session. So I think that healing can be instantaneous. It's just that we have so many blocks to that healing, so much fear, that we have to have the healing process be slow because we almost need to catch up to it sometimes.
Also, when you, at least I've had this, where I've had a belief system, I don't want it to be wrong because I've believed it for so long.
True.
And so I'm going to figure out a way to make that true, even if it isn't.
Yeah. Do you prefer that you be right or happy?
Yeah.
As of
course, I want both,
says.
but yeah, if I gotta. I mean, when I first heard that expression, I was like, well, how can you have one without the other? How can you be wrong and happy? Because you've lost if you're wrong.
Yeah. Spoken like a strong ego.
Yeah. Well, that's where the ego's not the greatest. But,
yeah, that's right.
But to go, oh no, I believed this for whatever, 10, 20, 50, 30 years about people or myself, and then you just sometimes just have to go, I give up, I lost.
Yeah.
I didn't get it right. And then you feel relieved.
Yeah, that's true. You do. You seem pretty fearless to me, though. Like, all these things, trying the Reiki, the hypnotherapy, you're like fearless in your approach to,
well,
I don't know.
Or desperate.
No, I don't sense
curious.
I don't sense any desperation from you at all. You seem very contained, at peace. I really don't.
Well, thank you. I'm going to take this out of the thing. It's too embarrassing.
Well, you shouldn't. I'm going to say it again if you do. I'll just
Okay.
find a way to keep interjecting.
Cynthia Morgan, making me feel good about myself and
No, but
uncomfortable at the
it's
same
true.
time.
Oh, there you go. That's my job. I'm a hypnotherapist.
Okay, that was Cynthia Morgan, my favorite hypnotherapist, the only one I know, actually. Check out her website. It's great, and she's just a wonderful person. I really had a great time talking to her, and I really appreciate you listening to the podcast. I'm trying all kinds of different things. This is still pretty new to me, so always a work in progress and a little bit of an experiment. The next one coming up I want you to check out is a woman named Amanda Cowan, who was working in England for the last 9 years in social work and in drug treatment. And we talk a little bit about, well, a lot about the differences in the treatment of both countries. And, they have a different health system there, so things are handled a little bit differently. Some things are better, some things are not. So it's a pretty straightforward and, very straightforward and rambling kind of fun interview, and a very energetic woman, and I enjoyed talking to her about everything from poverty to mental illness to pharmaceutical companies, and some of the the lighter side of being stalked. She got stalked over there by some people, but she's pretty funny about it, and nothing actually happened. So please listen into that one. That's my next one coming up, Amanda Cowan. And once again, thanks to Cynthia Morgan. Bye.